Okay, so I have been wanting to put out a video for quite some time, and it just seems like things keep piling up, and I hate making excuses, so I thought I would do a quicker one. This video is not scripted, so it might be a little scatterbrained, but I'll try to edit it down. I'm currently filming in my mother's room, because I don't have a bedroom, so this is the only way I can really film with peace and quiet when everyone's gone from the house. So I hope the camera setup is working. I have the most janky, I have 2 lamps and a backlight, and that's it. So today we're going to talk about sex work. Now, I picked this topic, one, because it's something I've been meaning to talk about, but also it's something that I'm familiar with. I'm not going to be going too into detail into my own experiences, because,
Who is it? What? I should kick your fucking ass. Who is this?
yeah. So, I'm going to stick to the abstract for today's video. The first thing to get out of the way, one thing I've noticed is a lot of people don't exactly know what sex work is. They think they know what it is, but they don't. Most people, when they think sex work, they think prostitution, or escorts, things like that. But sex work actually encompasses a whole lot of things, like dancers, strippers. It includes cam girls, cam people. It includes porn stars, whether they're amateur or professional. It includes, what would be another example? Escorts, courtesans, whatever you want to call them. It's a very broad category of people. Not everybody who's a sex worker is a prostitute, but because there's so much overlap in these things, it's kind of a general term to describe it. It's sort of like, for the LGBTQ or queer people, you have kind of an umbrella term for everybody, and then you can go into the individual specifics, because, they so often overlap. So, for sex work, it includes a lot of things. So, the next thing I want to talk about specifically is whether or not, once, let's say, hypothetically, we had control, we meaning leftists, had control over our own society, and we were able to make laws or rules, or however we wanted to put it. Would sex work exist? And this is a question that I've seen handled in various ways. One, I've seen a lot of people who don't know anything about sex work, have never done it. They don't know anyone who does. They haven't really researched anything, and they have their opinions. And while it's valid for them to have those opinions, their opinions are very ill-informed and silly. So I'm going to focus on the opinions of other sex workers or people who are educated about sex work. And my position in this, just so you know off the bat, is that I believe sex work should and would exist, like post-revolution or whatever you want to call it. In a leftist society, I think it would still exist. And the arguments against it are mostly twofold. One, it shouldn't exist, and the other is it wouldn't exist. I'm going to go first with the wouldn't, because that's the easiest to debunk. A lot of people say that because sex work is so often done out of necessity, it's, coerced out of sex workers. And that is a valid point. A lot of sex work is done only because you are forced to do so in order to make a living. However, I would like to point out that that's true of every single job in the capitalist world. Every single job, whether you enjoy it or not, whether it's something you set out to do or not, whether it's something you hate or not, you are forced to do it in order to make a living and to survive under capitalism. So, would people, sex workers, continue to do sex work even if they didn't need to? And I can tell you almost 100% yes. Not all sex workers would, of course, because there's some people that do it that don't want to. Just like every other career, there's people that are doing it because they have to, not because they want to. But just like every other career, there are people who do it because they want to and because they have to. So, and I can tell you this from personal experience. I know other sex workers that feel this way, that really enjoy their job, that get a lot of meaningful fulfillment out of it. And I would argue that sex work is also a job that we need. Sex work has existed throughout human history as far as anthropology and archaeology can tell. And there's no reason to believe that it's going to just stop because of a societal shift. There's been periods where sex work has been illegal. There's been periods where sex work has been extremely regulated to the point of it being oppressive, but there's never been a point where sex work has been 100% gone. And if you think that sex work only exists because of capitalism, you're also wrong, because sex work exists outside of capitalism. It has existed even before the invention, if you want to call it that, of capitalism. So, I mean, you could kind of say it's like a human thing. I mean, I don't like to make broad generalizations about the human condition, but I can say it's definitely a pattern of behavior that humans have engaged in as far back as we know. So, I think that covers the would we. Now let's move on to should we allow it. And this line of thinking says that we should outlaw it, or however you want to, do something to ban it, so that nobody does sex work, even if they want to. And I think that's a horrible idea. Number one, it won't stop anybody, because laws don't work that way. Like, I know I'm kind of biased being an anarchist, but laws, especially laws that regulate cultural practices or societal behaviors, they don't work. They'll just make things go farther underground. And, exactly, this is the kind of argument that I have with people when it comes to legalization versus decriminalization. If you don't understand that debate, decriminalization means that it's not illegal, but there's no laws on the books regulating it, which sounds bad. But the laws on the books, legalization, that do regulate sex work, we've seen this in other countries, for example, in like Germany and the Netherlands and stuff like that, is that it actually actively hurts sex workers. Number one, it hurts undocumented or immigrant sex workers. It hurts sex workers that, don't want to be on a government list of sex workers. Being on any kind of government list is a bad idea, especially when sex workers tend to be minority groups, disabled people, trans people, gay people, queer people in general. Like, you tend to be not the kind of person that wants to be known by the government. So I think that the idea of outright banning it is a horrible idea. I think the idea of regulating it, even regulating it beyond what you would for any other career, is a bad idea. Like, obviously, I think there should be laws about, like, or rule, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. There should be some kind of setup where, a person doesn't overwork themselves, or that kind of thing, or you have to have like a safe living environment, and hopefully under a leftist society that would be provided for them. So it wouldn't be a impediment or whatever on the sex worker themselves, but rather on the society that they support. So I could see that, but actual regulations are a horrible idea. Like, one example of a regulation that hurts sex workers is, it has different names all over the place, but basically it's like the pimp rule or the madame rule. It basically means that if you help or give money to or let a sex worker live in your area and do their work, like in your house or in your apartment building, then you are a pimp or a madame, whatever. You know, you're basically running a brothel. They have these laws in different places. I think they still have them in Ireland and places like that. And it's bad. Number one, because it encourages or incentivizes people not to help sex workers, specifically family members and friends. Because, you know, if your friend is a sex worker and you want to give them a place to stay, and then you get in trouble, you know, you'll be less likely to give them a place to stay. And I don't think that's the kind of sentiment we want to be fostering in a leftist community. So, should we? No, I don't think we should ban or regulate sex work in the way, you know, like legalize it and all that kind of stuff. I think we should decriminalize it, and that's it. And I think, you know, that covers the two basic arguments, but I also want to talk about the moral arguments, because there's some people that say, even if it hurts sex workers, even if they want to do it, we shouldn't do it because it's immoral. And this argument I have the hardest time arguing with, because morals are difficult to argue with because they're subjective. I mean, unless you want to get into like a philosophy discussion. I mean, if you believe in objective morality, well, fucking ever. Okay, like, it's so hard to argue against the morality route because everyone has their own reasons for why they believe it's immoral or moral or whatever. One of the reasons, but I can tell you one of the reasons why I think it's moral, or not immoral, bodily autonomy and free agency. Simple as that. You know, there's this idea that sex work demeans you, or it takes away or something, you know, and that's such a such an old school patriarchal, like, first wave feminist type of thing. Like, not even second wave, first wave, like fucking way back. It's bad. It's a bad argument. It's usually based on sexist ideas, and where it's not based on sexist ideas, it's based on like sex negative ideas. Like, if you've ever heard of sex positivity, it's like the opposite of sex positivity. Like, I can't speak for myself, but I can say I have a friend who does sex work, whose name is Charlie, and he says that, you know, the idea that people think it's demeaning or somehow devalues him is offensive as hell. Like, do you really believe that? Like, see, here's my thing, is that sex work is no different than any other type of work. I mean, especially if you try to say, well, it involves your body. Lots of jobs involve your body. A ton of jobs involve your body. I mean, if you've ever done manual labor, you'll know that your bodily autonomy is taken away from you for a while. And, you know, and that's under a capitalist system. If we're in a leftist society, in a non-capitalist system, your bodily autonomy isn't even taken away from you, whether you're doing manual labor or sex work, because you choose to do it. You're not forced to work. You have the decision to decide autonomously to use your body how you want to. So, I don't understand the moral argument against this. I think it's honestly kind of a reactive thing, like not reactionary, but reactive, because people are uncomfortable with sex, they're uncomfortable with sex work, and the view they have of sex workers is so limited, and the view they have of sex work in general. There's this idea that the only people that enjoy sex work are like bougie, white, liberal, upper class escorts. Like, I don't know if you ever saw that TV show with Billie Piper where she plays Call Girl. I think it's called Call Girl. Like that. No. There's tons of people that enjoy sex work that aren't like rich upper class white ladies. I mean, people who make this argument, I implore you to talk to actual sex workers, and not like one or two. Like, talk to multiple people you know, imagine if you were trying to get the opinion about transgender people, and you asked one trans person. You're not gonna get the whole fucking macaroni. You're gonna miss a whole lot, because every trans person has a different idea of what it's like to be trans. There's trans people who believe it's awful, I hate it, my dysphoria, and it's great, you know. And then there's people who have gender euphoria, and they believe it's great, and they love being trans, and they shout it from the rooftops and everything. You know, it's the same thing with sex work or any other type of work. It's down to the individual. And one of the things I hope that a leftist society would foster is individual agency, the choice to decide to do it yourself as you wish. You know, you're not hurting anyone. You're not hurting yourself. And don't fucking give me that psychological, like, fake psych thing that, like, sex work hurts the sex worker psychologically. That's not true. It's frankly insulting, actually. I mean, you could say the environment that sex workers have to live in under capitalism is abusive and causes psychological damage. I would agree with you on that. But sex work in and of itself, don't show me that study. Okay. Let's wrap it up here. So, my point is that sex work would exist, should exist, and morally it's fine after capitalism is destroyed. Even before capitalism is gone, I still believe that we should, as a leftist movement, focus on, you know, decriminalization rather than legalization. I already discussed some ways that legalization hurts sex workers. If I remember, I'll put some links in the description about that. And, you know, obviously that's not the ideal. Like, it would be great if we could go and start the revolution right fucking now. Like, but that's not going to happen. So if you want to make the lives of sex workers better now, you can work towards decriminalization, and you can also work with the minority groups that are often working in sex work, whether they're disabled, whether they're a person of color, whether they're queer, whatever. Go out there and fucking do something. Like, even if it's something little. I mean, I don't know. Oh, I want to add a small little amendum to this. Someone asked me in my CuriousCat a long time ago, should leftists buy sex work from sex workers? And the question kind of took me off guard. Number one, because it seems obvious to me, but I understand why it's not obvious to other people. The answer is yes, absolutely. Give us your money. Give us all your money. We need it to survive. I mean, they need it to survive, not we. I don't do anything illegal. I'm a good being. So, yes, absolutely, do that. If you don't actually want to engage in sexual activity with them, just give them your money. Just give it to them. I'm not joking. Like, I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Just give them your money. I don't think there's a sex worker out there that would disagree with me on that. You'd have to be really committed to your ideals or something, whatever the hell your ideals would be. So, I'm going to end the video there. If you have questions about sex work or any of the things I've discussed here, feel free to leave them in the comments, or you can DM me on Twitter. You can send them to me in my CuriousCat. There'll be a link to that in the description as well. And I hope you enjoyed this kind of short little video. It's not as well put together as I would have liked. I would have liked to write a script and do it, but I do kind of like just talking. I feel like it's more organic, and It's more fun. Like, it sounds less like a book report. Especially when it's a topic that I'm interested in or invested in for some reason. So I hope you guys had fun. I know my dogs were very happy to sit with me in this room. And thank you for watching.